Thank you for listening to Barrier Breakers, Building Communities and Connecting the Dots. Special thanks to Melissa Azam, Judge Tim Bryan, Ubaldo Moraz, and Prithvi Mudana. Hosted by Jeremy Flowers and Nell Spencer.
Welcome to Barrier Breakers, Building Communities and Connecting the Dots, Episode 6. I'm Jeremy Flowers, Director of Coordinated Community Response with the East Texas Crisis Center.
And I'm Nell Spencer, the Director of Outreach and Education at the Women's Center of East Texas. And today we have Hollie Bruce. She's the CEO of the Women's Center. And so Hollie, tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got into the nonprofit world.
So I am an East Texas native and moved away for a while. When I was in my 20s, kind of was trying to figure out what I wanted to do. I was doing some marketing work for a nonprofit, and I was actually exposed to all of the nonprofits in the area in Fort Worth because they were member agencies of that agency. And we would help them look for funding and identify different funding opportunities. So that exposure to all of the nonprofits in the area, which I had previously not been familiar with, and the important work that they were doing, inspired me to go to grad school for social work. Mm-hmm. And so I did that in 2006 and graduated in 2008 and have mostly since then been involved in nonprofit work. I have spent some time in the medical sector as well, running social service or departments. But I love the most of the time efficiency of nonprofits and there's some amazing nonprofits out there who are so valuable and do so much for the community and society, and feeling the value and the impact that you're having on lives doing this work is what keeps me in it.
Yeah, that kind of like frontline, hands-on work with people.
Absolutely. Even though I'm not always the one doing that, I'm getting to make sure that we have the money to do that, and I'm getting to work with all of the staff who care so much about the people we work with, and so it's always rewarding. It's just a nonprofit world's a great place to be. The Women's Center is a great place to be.
It is.
Yeah, so navigating nonprofits can be difficult, especially in leadership, trying to meet those needs, and specifically of survivors, the essential needs that they have, unique needs and challenges that they face. What are some of those most common obstacles to meeting the needs that you see?
From my perspective, a big push that we work toward, and I know you all work toward too, is making sure the awareness is out there, that we exist, that we're here for you. Being in areas where we are rural and transportation can be limited, informational resources can be limited, we're always trying to get out to wherever we can to let people know what domestic violence is, what sexual assault looks like, how trafficking can happen, and that we're here to serve them. And so accessing some of those pockets that are harder to find in the rural areas can be a challenge to making sure those individuals have access to our services. Another constant issue, and I think this is with almost every nonprofit, is the funding varies so much year to year. We have several different funding sources, and so we have to really identify what do we have money for, where are we lacking, what do we need to make up, and then focus grant applications on that and focus our asks on that. But it's ever changing. So we may have 12 grant budgets that all have to tie into this one big grant budget, and it's always changing year to year. Funding availability fluctuates, and as we all know, governmental grant availability changes. And so really just navigating that, staying on top of where are we with that? Any change in legislature or anything like that can affect our funding. And so that's one of the biggest challenges, is just putting these million pieces of a puzzle together to ensure that we have everything we need to provide everything to our clients that they need.
Yeah. So you've been with the Women's Center since 2020-ish. In, I guess, I mean, your whole kind of career in nonprofit, but also in East Texas, how have you seen domestic violence, sexual assault, and the need for our services change over the years?
I think that's an interesting question. In terms of my career in nonprofit, I worked a lot with the homeless population, and I wasn't aware of it before going into it, how much of a role domestic violence played into that. And so, I've worked in transitional housing and shelter, and domestic violence was such a heavy presence. Working, and those were residential programs, and then working in a non-residential, more like a day center, really noticed how prevalent that was as well. I think that one of the big changes that we've seen societally, and that I've seen since I've started my career, is more prevalence of males coming forward as victims who need our services. And so we all know, obviously, that males can experience domestic violence and sexual assault, but there can be a lot more challenging of a stigma for males, really just because of kind of gender roles. And our organization name is the Women's Center. And so people may not think that we are there to serve males, but we are. But I think that seeing willingness of some, and as you know, not many, males coming forward to need and request services is something that I've noticed a change in.
Yeah, it's interesting that you bring that up, because we've talked about kind of the gender roles and society. I think there is kind of more of an acceptance now than there has been just in the 5 years that I've been doing this. And so I am curious to see how that continues, and that because there are male survivors, and we do serve them. And just like the East Texas Crisis Center serves them. And I think that we as agencies have to bring awareness to that, because we're missing out on a huge demographic of people when we don't acknowledge that. So,
and we also know that there are a number of males who were sexually assaulted as children, perhaps in different group environments, and that may not have ever been addressed at that time. So we always want to encourage those individuals to seek our services now if they're still affected by that trauma, which more than likely they are. There is no shame. It is not that person's fault. But even if that sexual assault took place 20 years ago, we're here to serve them because we want to help them work through that trauma.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's such an important piece to bring men into, the survivor side of it, because as you mentioned, there is that stigma, stigma about having my masculinity challenged. If I speak out about this, if I express vulnerability, then that somehow makes me weak or less of a man. And, in my experience in the field, there's also been a gain in men in the advocacy side too. Like, I know it's predominantly women who do the work, but there's been a movement of men who want to step up and foster that healthy masculinity that creates safe spaces for men to speak out about their experiences, but also works to challenge the harmful norms of masculinity that perpetuate violence. Right. And, you brought up awareness earlier, and that's something y'all try to do, just to be out in the community and raise awareness. And, that's one of the reasons we started this podcast. And you were at the table when the idea was birthed about a year ago. Yes. And so here we are bringing it into fruition. But what are some of the ways that y'all raise awareness?
Well, this is a really good example of a more forward-thinking and innovative thing that we haven't done before. Our two agencies cover a number. We cover 6 counties. Y'all cover 5. So between us covering 11 counties, a collaboration like this, I think, is pretty innovative and not something we've seen before. And so I think that we need to try to, hit all of the channels that we can to reaching people. we all go to the health fairs and the community fairs and have booths and make sure our information is out there. And obviously we will continue to do that. But if any church, any school group, any civic group wants to hear more about what we do in domestic violence and sexual assault, and how we could provide services to survivors, we want them to call us and let us know. We'll come. We will go just about anywhere. Yeah. Because domestic violence impacts so many people. All of us know someone or have been involved in a domestic violence situation. And so I think that having the knowledge, even if you're not a person who is being abused or if you're not a person who is abusing, is critical. And it's the biggest step in prevention and ending that cycle of violence. Because if you grew up in that cycle of violence, again, it's a cycle. And so it becomes generational, and that's really where we want to stop.
Yeah, and without that awareness or that education, then you can't break the cycle.
Yes. We're always looking for new ways to make sure that our name is out there, the information is out there. I mean, come see us. We don't charge anything for services. We are here to help.
Talk to us a little bit about kind of the services that may be unique to us, that we provide for survivors.
Sure. And in terms of agencies that are similar to us, such as East Texas Crisis Center, I'm not sure how unique this is to us, but I think maybe less known. We're known, both of us, as having shelters. We're known to have domestic violence shelters. But what I think that we want to make sure the community knows is that we do a lot more in addition to shelter. Shelter's critical. If you need to flee a domestic violence situation and you have nowhere to go, we're here for that. But if you need to flee a domestic violence situation and you do have somewhere else to go and you don't need shelter, we're here for you too. And so that's one of the important factors that I always want to stress, because that's where our highest numbers are of service. And so, and we call that outreach or non-residential services. But that could include legal advocacy. We provide counseling for our clients, and housing assistance is a major one. That's such a barrier. If you flee your abusive spouse with your children, let's say, and you go to our shelter, it's like, well, what's next? We've got to have some options for you to take after shelter. Otherwise, you're going to do what? You're most likely going to return to the abuser. And so offering housing assistance, rapid rehousing, getting people into stable housing once they're ready to leave shelter and can become self-sufficient, I think is that's one of my favorite things that we do, because it's obviously it's costly. But we get them fully set up. We want to break down any and all barriers to returning to the abuser.
Tell us about SOS kits.
Okay, so we will also furnish the apartment or the new home that the survivor moves into. And SOS kits are starting over safely kits.
Oh, nice.
So we bring in mattresses, box springs, bed frames. You know, think about moving into your first apartment. You needed everything, right? And so we make sure that they have all of those needs. We're not going to just put somebody in an empty apartment. And if they're moving in with 3 children, that's 4 beds. But it's necessary. We want that place to feel like a home to them, and to be comfortable. So all the linens, the dishes, cleaning supplies. I'm missing something, I know, but
it's literally everything
you need to move in. And generally they don't have anything because it stayed behind. We're really fortunate to operate 4 Hope's Closet stores. Those are resale stores. And we can utilize, items that are at Hope's Closet. All of our clients shop at Hope's Closet for free. And so many of our clients, maybe let's say they go to shelter, they may stay with us for 2 years for continued support. It doesn't happen overnight that you become self-sufficient, just like it didn't happen for me that I became self-sufficient. My father would definitely agree that it did not happen overnight. It can be a really gradual process. And so we're here to support them for the amount of time that they need us to.
And that number is, I think when people are researching how long a client or a survivor, it takes them to leave a situation to becoming completely self-sufficient is about 3 to 5 years. And so I don't know what it looks like at the East Texas Crisis Center, but we definitely have had clients who are with us for that period of time. And that care doesn't stop. You know, we want that continuity of care to continue, whether they're in shelter and they leave shelter into stable housing. So,
and someone might ask, why are you continuing to serve someone for 3 to 5 years? But not only is that process of becoming self-sufficient gradual, there is so much trauma to unpack and to process and to learn to live with on a daily basis. If someone grew up in a violent household and married into a violent household, there are a lot of skills and coping skills that need to be developed and challenged and learned. And so it's lengthy work.
yeah, it is.
And just having that support system there, because we know healing isn't linear, and providing SOS kits, I think, is wonderful because it's just one less thing that they have to worry about, right? It's stressful enough already.
Yeah.
Reacclimating back into society after you've experienced this traumatic thing. And so anything that we can do as service providers to provide a cushion or that support or that foundation for moving forward.
Right. You know, and a lot of times our clients, if they're in housing, they may be one missed paycheck away from becoming homelessness again. We are that net. We're not going to let them become homeless again. So if the car breaks down and they need to pay for that, which means they can't pay for their rent, then we can assist them with that. We're here to support them for the long term.
You mentioned earlier, navigating funding as a leader in the organization, and you mentioned Hope's Closet, and with the economy, we never know what individual or donor giving is going to look like, so we can't rely on that to be constant. So what are some of y'all's funding sources?
Hope's Closet is a big one. One thing we saw during COVID, when everybody had to be at home, they cleaned out their closets, right? So we were packed with donations at that time. Of course, that was 4.5 years ago. But we see different trends based upon what is going on out in society and within the economy, too. Prices of groceries are going up. We see that. And when things like that are happening, when there's any insecurity about someone's economic circumstance, we often see our sales go up. But Hope's Closet is integral. It's essential. We couldn't do it without Hope's Closet. And so we're really, really fortunate there. But yeah, like you said, I mean, the government funding that we receive, it's not guaranteed ever. And so while we, we certainly depend on it, we have to know it could go away. And we all operate that way year to year. And so again, we're very fortunate to have Hope's Closet and the support of our community who donate to Hope's Closet. And then, of course, those people who shop at Hope's Closet. But financial gifts from community members and those who support us, and local foundations and non-local foundations are also a big part of what we lean on to be able to run our operation.
Yeah. And because there is such a huge kind of scope, and the same is for you guys, of what we do, we have to have that multiple kind of level of multiple people, multiple things that we're looking for funding, right? It's not just one area. Yeah. So tell us about, as kind of the leader and the CEO and the person in charge, tell us about where you want to see the agency go. What are your goals and plans for the future for the Women's Center?
So one of our big challenges is that our shelter can only hold approximately 30 people.
Yeah.
And we serve 6 counties. And so depending on the configuration of families and the number of children versus the number of women in shelter, it may be a little less than that. 30 beds for 6 counties isn't cutting it. and we pretty much remain full. So we refer to our partner agencies like East Texas Crisis Center. We will, when we are full, we will certainly try to establish someone with another organization so that they can get the services that they need. But turning people away isn't what we want to do due to capacity. And so a big goal and something that we'll be really seeing hopefully coming to fruition in the next few years, because it's a long project that has many moving parts, would be to build a newer and larger shelter.
That's my dream.
Yes. Mine too. I was just talking to a board member and I was like, this has to happen like while I'm here. It has to happen. Not that I have any plans to leave, but it's a pressing need. It is not like, hey, let's imagine what may happen in 5 years. Like we're there, the need is there now. So we're starting to work on plans for that.
So not only emergency shelter is necessary, there's a need there for a larger capacity, because oftentimes at the crisis center, we're full as well.
Right.
So we're doing the same thing as y'all referring out to Lufkin or referring to y'all if y'all have space. In some instances, if we have funding available, we'll provide hotel.
Yes.
If it's safe.
Right.
And so there's, I saw something from TCFV, I can't remember the exact percentage, but there's a large portion of women who were turned away last year because of there wasn't room in shelter for them. And so, like, not only a need for more space in emergency shelter and transitional housing, what other message would you have for the community that is something that they could help either donate to, give in-kind donations towards that would help meet the needs of survivors?
So we have, and I really do want to echo that such a high number of our shelters in Texas are having to turn people away due to capacity. The individuals who need our services, they need our services. The evidence-based, trauma-informed, client-centered services that we know how to work with individuals who are coming out of trauma. We highly train our staff to do that. And so we are the places that we need. And so I think as a state, as an agency, we have to do better. We have to be able to accommodate these people because our numbers aren't going down. So I apologize. What was the second part of your question?
That's what, I guess that is, you answered it in that sense, the community needs to hear that.
Yeah. We don't have enough room, and it's not just us. We are the designated domestic violence shelter of our catchment area, as you all are for yours. And so having specialized services, there are certain criteria that we have to meet in order to be designated as the domestic violence shelter in our area that are put forth by HHSC. Such as being trauma-informed. We're required to offer counseling. So we do all of those things, both of our agencies do. But having services that are relevant to those individuals. We do have other homeless shelters in town. But once again, I think that for our population, being designated a domestic violence agency and having that specific knowledge is critical. And we've just got to do better. And so I think that as a community, it's really important to know that these numbers aren't going down, that you probably know someone who's experiencing it. It may not be physical. A lot of times it's not. We always think about we always think physical first, but emotional abuse is so incredibly common and confusing.
And hard to see.
Especially from the outside or the inside.
Yeah.
If you're the recipient, it's very, very hard to identify. There's a lot of manipulation that goes on with that. And so just because you don't see a bruise doesn't mean that things aren't going on. And so I think that, making sure that we are there for people without judgment and sharing the resources that are out there, which is why y'all are doing this podcast, why we're here.
Yeah. And I want to kind of piggyback on that. Our agencies, it is April is Sexual Assault Awareness Month. And I think it's important for us to tell the community that we are the people that respond to those sexual assaults at the hospitals. And so we are that designated agency, just as the East Texas Crisis Center is the designated agency in your area, where we go and we respond to the hospitals when a survivor comes in for like a rape kit, and we sit with those survivors 24 hours a day. It can be 4 o'clock in the afternoon or 4 o'clock in the morning. We respond to that. And I think that is such a cool, necessary, such a privilege for us to be able to provide that service for survivors of sexual assault.
Yeah, and it's a great point to bring up too, because the community may not be aware, and if they arrive at the hospital, they may not know to ask for an advocate to be present, but they have that right.
Right. And I'm really glad you brought that up, because I don't think it's not a well-known fact. I mean, a lot of people, the general public they don't sit around and think about what happens to a person if they're sexually assaulted. And that's to be expected. But should a person need to go get a rape kit at the hospital, we do want the community to know that, hey, we're there for you. So we will go in, as Nell said, 24/7 and help the survivor navigate through the process, but also sit with them as a non-clinical professional, because the process of that is very clinical and it's invasive and uncomfortable. And so being able to offer that support and let them know right then, like, hey, we can help you with this and this and this. But that involvement and that collaboration with our hospitals to go in and accompany the individual, like Nell said, is a real privilege, and we're very proud that we do that.
Yeah. So one last question before we wrap up, and what is it that you maybe are most proud of for your organization, for the movement that you've seen, that you would like to share?
I have a couple of different things, but to me, and as a social worker, this is how I was taught. You meet the client where they are. So we don't have a program necessarily, but if you come in as a client, we create your program, right? And so it's individualized and tailored to you. Because if I say, hey, Jeremy, you have to do this and this, and then I'll give you counseling, you may not have that motivation. These 2 steps may not be relevant to you. And so I think that individualized care plans are something that we stay away from cookie cutter methods. They don't work generally. I think that I'm sure that there are programs and other organizations that find that they do work for them. For our population, the last thing we want to do is exert control and power. And so while we have to maintain structure and stability in our programs and our services, we're going to tailor everyone's services to them. So they come in and they say, I want counseling, but I do not want to go to support groups. Great. You can pick and choose from our menu of services what is going to work for you. And so I'm proud of that we really, really tailor everything to the individual. If we, let's say, forced clients to go to counseling, you're a licensed professional counselor. That's not what you want to do, is it?
No.
Because you risk further traumatizing that individual if they're not prepared for that. And so it makes me proud that we really tailor our services to the individual. But then also, and once again, I think that these are things that are not known always. It's that we set people up in housing. We do everything we can to get them out of that abusive situation, not just for a few weeks or a few nights at shelter, but permanently. And that's critical to reducing future rates of domestic violence and to teaching our young people a different way to live. We had our legal services program, which we're hoping to get back, which was funding to help our clients obtain attorneys to navigate through all of the complications that they need to navigate through to permanently escape their violent situation. And so while we don't have that funding right now, we are aggressively trying to get it back because it helped so many women.
We served 120 women and their children.
Which is it's outrageous. And it hurts my heart that we don't have it right now, but we're gonna do everything we can to get that back.
Well, thank you for joining us.
Yeah.
Thank you all.
Thank you for being
Thank
here
y'all for
today.
doing this every week.
Yeah.
Great conversation. Thank you for the work y'all are doing.
Likewise, thank you for everything y'all do. I love having the partnership that we do, and
It's important.
it is.
It's definitely important.
We don't need, we don't need to fight as agencies. I think that, and I work well with y'all CEO Nicole, and I think that that's really important and valuable, and most importantly, puts the clients first. That we collaborate and work well together. So I appreciate the relationship and everything that y'all do.
Yeah. Well, if you or a loved one have experienced domestic violence or sexual assault, you can call the Women's Center of East Texas hotline at 800-441-5555.
Or the East Texas Crisis Center at 903-595-5591.
And we will see you in a couple of weeks.
See you next time.
Thank you for listening to Barrier Breakers, Building Communities and Connecting the Dots.